Hey guys, College Predictor here. I'm going to be picking the NCAA Blockbusters for February 3rd, Saturday. It's going to be some good games. Let's start off with number 3, North Carolina, taking on number 7, Duke, in Chapel Hill. Now, this is a huge rivalry in basketball. Two of the biggest blue bloods in college basketball history as we remember it. Just amazing. Two great teams. Now, remember, if you haven't been into college basketball, Coach K is not at Duke anymore. So they've had a good fill-in, but North Carolina, they have some studs on their team, such as their leading point scorer with 21.5 per game, R.J. Davis, the senior out of White Plains, New York. Very consistent for them. He's going to need to have a great game against their biggest rival. And also they're going to need a rebound with the big man at forward, Armando Bacot. You might have heard his name before. Senior out of Richmond, Virginia. 6'11", 240 pounds, 13 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 17th in NCAA. Now, if we look at Duke's stats, they also got some good studs on their team, like their leading rebounder and their leading scorer, with 17.5 points per game and 8.7 rebounds per game. Kyle Filipowski, the center, 7-footer, out of Westtown, New York. A lot of New York players in this game. Now, this game should be a really good game. I see it going either way. It is a blue blood, and we're not gonna ignore the fact that North Carolina just barely recently got upset against Georgia Tech, and there was a court rush for Georgia Tech. Besides that, they lost versus UConn, who's number 1 right now, Kentucky, and then Villanova in overtime. Meanwhile, Duke's losses have been just as good, besides that one against Georgia Tech. They've had good wins also. They've been winning all their ACC games they've had to. Their losses came versus 12 Arizona, at Arkansas, also at Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech's good at beating these blue bloods. And they lost to Pitt at home in a huge upset. So both these teams have their up and downs. That's kind of what college basketball is all about. So I can see this, like I said, this game I feel like it's almost a coin toss. I think it could go either way. And if we look at past matchups, Duke it's been the home team that's been most dominant the last couple of years. So with that in mind, it's going to be hard to pick against North Carolina at home. But I'm going to take the Duke Blue Devils on the road to beat the Carolina Tar Heels. Next game we got is the Tennessee Volunteers taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. And we know normally this is a somewhat big rivalry game in NCAA football. Basketball, it's even bigger. Tennessee's 5th ranked in the nation with only 4 losses. On the other hand, Kentucky's 10th ranked, also with good losses. The cool thing is when you find all these teams, almost all of them have lost to Kansas, which is really random. So that's not really what you expected to keep in mind with these two teams. If we look at Tennessee, they've been really good all year. They haven't really been upset too much. The only team that was really considered an upset that beat them was maybe Mississippi State. It was on the road, and they also lost to South Carolina. So they haven't had too many bad upsets. In fact, they had 5 losses. They've had some good players on their team too, but also no one that stands out. Their leading scorer is Dalton Schnecht with 20.1 a game, although that's all he's really got going for him. He's got not very good rebound stats and not very good assists. Leading rebounder with 7.3 a game, Jonas Aidoo. He's pretty good, forward 6'11", 241 out of Durham, North Carolina. Don't know why he committed North Carolina, but he chose that route. Anyways, Kentucky, they've had losses to UNC Wilmington at home. That's not good for them. Then they lost to Florida in overtime, South Carolina, and they also lost to Kansas. So they've had 4 losses, but 3 of them have been unranked teams. You cannot be having that happen if you want to have a 1 seed and have a deep run in March Madness. So this game is also a toss-up. It's at Kentucky. We already know that atmosphere is going to be electric. Just like I said, it's hard to beat a blue blood on the road. But Tennessee in basketball, they've been much more consistent than their football team. But even though they have been better, I think I'm going to take Kentucky as a 1.5-point underdog to win this game by making their free throws late when Tennessee has to foul to try to get back in the game. Next game, the one game that isn't considered a Sonic blockbuster, but it's still two ranked teams. 12 Iowa State at number 18 Baylor. Baylor, mind you, they won the national championship a couple years ago. Yes, I know they've had a fall off from then with most of the players going to the NBA. But they've still done a consistent job of winning the games they've had to get into a point where they could easily make the tournament. They've had losses to TCU, Kansas State, both in overtime, at Texas by 2, and then Michigan State, and they lost to Duke by 8. So, if you look at their record and the teams they've lost to, Baylor's a much better team than that record shows. Now, yes, I know they haven't had many superstars, but their leading scorer with about 15 points a game is guard, 6'5" freshman, Jacoby Walter. Baylor's going to want to make sure they can hang on to him for as long as possible. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Iowa State's been solid as well. They've had losses to Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, at Oklahoma, and at BYU. Now, for knowing how bad they were in the last couple years in basketball, this is a huge turnaround for them. And the main reason for that is probably the leading point scorer and assist leader for the Cyclone team, Taman Lipsby. The sophomore out of Ames, Iowa, 200 pounds, 6'1". He's physical. He can score. He is the guy that needs to step up for this game. Now, this game should be really good. Baylor is actually a 3.5-point favorite at home, but Iowa State's been really good this year. I'm taking the Cyclones by 7. And now we go to the Houston-Kansas game. Two Big 12 absolute masterclasses. Houston just coming off a really big road win over the Texas Longhorns in overtime. And their only losses were at Iowa State and at TCU by a combined 5 points. So that's really good for their resume. I would say Houston's a 1-seed lock, assuming they win this game at Kansas, which is never easy to do. Now, a big piece of their team this year has been L.J. Cryer, the senior out of Katy, Texas. He's their point leader, and he's also been really good on the defensive side. But leading the team in steals and assists is Jamal Sheed, the senior out of Manor, Texas, 6'1", 200 pounds. This guy is a huge difference maker. Now, one thing that Houston does better than any team is rebound. They are the best rebounding team. You are not beating Houston in the paint. If you can get an offensive rebound on them, consider yourself a win, because that's the last one you're going to get. Meanwhile, for Kansas, we know they just lost plenty of players to the NBA. However, the senior 6'7" guard, Kevin McCullough Jr., stepped up big time when he's had to. Also, the center, Hunter Dickinson, also a senior. He's been doing good this year in rebounds, assists, field goal percentage, all amazing. Kansas has had good losses versus number 4 Marquette at the time, at UCF, West Virginia, and at Iowa State. And they've won all the ranked games besides Iowa State and Marquette. They beat UConn, who's currently ranked number 1 in the nation, giving them one of their 2 losses. So this game could also go either way. I just think it's hard to beat Houston in the paint, even if you do have all those good rebounders and all those studs on the outside. You can't beat Houston very often. Houston, a 1.5-point favorite. Give me the Cougs to win by 4. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, stay tuned. I'll be picking more NCAA games, more conference overviews, and just overall more NCAA content. I'll also be picking the Super Bowl in upcoming days. Stay tuned for that. And I know you've probably been thinking about what this basketball is. It is a Team USA basketball, and it has an autograph on it. Really cool mini basketball. I caught it when it was thrown from a player. Really cool collector's item. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you later.